This paper wasn't supposed to exist. My mother slid it across the polished wood table, her manicured nails tapping twice against the edge. My sister Becca leaned closer, phone angled perfectly, already recording. The restaurant smelled like rosemary and old money, the kind of place where even silence costs extra. Inside the envelope wasn't a card. It wasn't cash. It was an eviction notice. 30 days to vacate the family home. My graduation gift. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I folded it once, slipped it into my jacket, and stood up. No scene, no begging, just the sound of my chair scraping tile. They thought they'd erased me. What they didn't know was I'd already rewritten the ending. Stay until the end. You'll see what happens when the invisible become undeniable. Growing up, I learned that love in our house had terms and conditions. My father, Richard Cole, measured worth in square footage and stock portfolios. My mother, Patricia, measured it in Instagram likes and charity galas. My sister Becca was the product they were proud to display. At family dinners, I was always introduced last, sometimes not at all. "This is Becca," my mother would say, her hand resting on my sister's shoulder. "She just made junior partner at the firm." Then a pause, a small, performative sigh. "And this is Jordan, still figuring things out." Still figuring things out. That phrase followed me like a shadow through every holiday, every reunion, every moment I thought might be different. Our dining room always smelled like lemon polish and disappointment. The overhead light fixture, some imported crystal chandelier my mother bought at auction, cast fractured patterns across the table. I used to count them while my father discussed mergers, and my mother rehearsed speeches for donors who confused generosity with virtue. Becca thrived there. She knew when to laugh, when to nod, when to tilt her head just enough to look engaged without committing. I studied her like a foreign language. Every gesture earned approval, every pause calculated for effect. I, on the other hand, worked nights at a tech startup downtown. The office was cramped, fluorescent lit, nothing like the marble halls of my father's firm. But there, people didn't care about your last name. They cared about your code, your ideas, whether you could solve problems no one else saw coming. I liked that. It was measurable, clean, honest. One night after a product launch, I came home to find Becca sitting in the living room, laptop open, my father pouring scotch. "We were just talking about you," he said, swirling the glass slowly. Becca glanced up. "Dad thinks you're wasting your potential in some startup basement." I smiled. The kind of smile you wear when you've heard it before. "I'm building something," I said. My father shrugged. "Buildings need foundations, Jordan. You're 26 and still renting." I wanted to tell him I understood foundations better than anyone in that house, that I could build systems, scale infrastructure, debug failures no one else could trace. But his attention had already drifted back to Becca's latest case win. After that night, I stopped trying to translate my world into theirs. I just started documenting it. Still, there were moments I thought maybe things would shift, like when I got promoted to lead engineer. I forwarded the email to the family group chat. Subject line, "Good news." My mother replied 4 hours later. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Can you help Becca move this weekend? She's upgrading to a 2-bedroom. They never acknowledged it again. That was the day I understood something permanent. Attention in my family wasn't earned. It was allocated, and I'd been operating on a deficit my entire life. I remember the sound of ice clinking in my father's glass that night, how it echoed in the silence after I stopped expecting anything different. That was the night I learned my place, somewhere between proof and irrelevance. 3 weeks before graduation, a message appeared in the family group chat. A calendar invite, Marcello's, the same Italian restaurant my mother reserved for every milestone that wasn't mine. The message was clinical, professional. Pre-graduation dinner for Jordan, 7 p.m., dress code, business casual. No warmth, no celebration, just another item on the schedule. I clicked the link. The reservation was under my father's name. My name didn't appear anywhere in the booking notes, just Cole family, party of 4. An hour later, Becca sent a private message. "Don't read into it. Mom's just being mom." Being mom, as if neglect were a personality trait, not a choice. That night I sat at my desk, city lights blinking through the window like distant code. My inbox was full. Messages from investors, colleagues, recruiters. Opportunities stacking up like unread notifications. None of it mattered when the people who taught you your value still treated you like a beta test. I scrolled through old family photos, saved in a folder I rarely opened. Vacations, holidays, charity events. My mother's perfect posture. My father's rehearsed confidence. Becca's practiced charm. And me, always at the edge of the frame, half-cropped, half-seen, half there. It wasn't new. It was just the first time I stopped pretending it would change. The next morning, I got an email from my program director, Dr. Wynn. She'd nominated me for the university's Innovator Award. The ceremony was the same day as graduation. She wrote, "This is your moment, Jordan. You've earned it. Don't let anyone dim that." Earned. That word felt solid, real. I closed the laptop and looked around my apartment. Everything had its place. Coffee mug aligned with the notebook. Charging cables coiled in perfect loops. The clock ticking steady, unbothered. My life wasn't chaotic. It was organized, just not by them anymore. I smiled. The kind of smile you wear when you've already moved on. The week before the dinner, rain hammered against my apartment windows. The glass fogged at the edges, blurring the city into soft streaks of light. Inside, everything was sharp. I brewed coffee, the smell cutting through the storm outside, bitter and grounding. My laptop glowed on the desk. Rows of data, lines of code. A project I'd been building for 2 years, something no one in my family knew existed. It started as a side project, a logistics optimization platform I called ShiftPath. What began as a tool to help small delivery companies route smarter had turned into something scalable, something real. My co-founder, Luis, handled business development. Priya designed the interface, and I wrote the algorithm that made it all work. The breakthrough came at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday. I ran a simulation that cut delivery times by 18% while reducing fuel costs by 22%. I stared at the numbers, heart pounding. Proof. Undeniable, mathematical proof. 2 months later, we pitched at a startup expo. The room was packed, investors leaning forward, taking notes. When I finished, the applause was polite at first, then genuine. Afterward, a man in a tailored navy suit approached. Tall, composed, the kind of presence that didn't need introduction. "Marcus Green," he said, extending his hand, "CEO of Apex Freight Solutions." I shook it. "You've built something elegant," he said, studying the slides on my tablet. "More than that, something necessary." Necessary. A word I'd never heard applied to anything I'd done. We met twice after that. The third time, he slid a folder across the table at a coffee shop downtown. Inside was an acquisition offer. Apex wanted ShiftPath for $8.4 million, plus a VP position for me, post-graduation. I didn't sign immediately. I read every line, every clause, every subclause. I wanted to make sure what I'd built, something made from late nights and belief, not privilege, stayed intact. When I finally signed, it wasn't euphoria. It was balanced. After that, I started building my archive, digital backups of every document, transaction records, signed contracts, the kind of paper trail that doesn't just tell a story, it seals it. The night the final wire transfer cleared, I printed the offer letter. The sound of paper sliding from the printer was cleaner than applause. That's when I opened the family group chat for the first time in weeks. The most recent message was from my mother, a photo of Becca at some rooftop networking event. Caption, "So proud of this one." I typed a reply, "Graduation dinner confirmed. I'll be there." No punctuation, no emoji, just confirmation. After that, I cleaned my apartment the way I always did before pivotal moments. Every surface wiped, every object in its place. My degree folder on the desk, the offer letter beside it, and beneath both, an old birthday card my mother gave me when I was 12. "To my quiet dreamer," it said. I placed the new documents on top of it. Fresh ink, heavy paper. Midnight came softly. I closed my laptop, finished the last of the coffee, and watched the rain stop. The silence that followed felt ceremonial. They were planning to bring their letter, thinking it would define me. What they didn't know was I'd already signed something far more permanent, my independence. The morning of the dinner, I woke before dawn. The first light touched the corner of my desk, catching the silver clip holding my contracts together. I touched the paper lightly, grounding myself. I didn't dress for them. I dressed for records. Charcoal blazer, clean lines, neutral tones, the kind of look that doesn't beg to be seen, but refuses to be forgotten. Before leaving, I placed my coffee mug exactly 1 inch from the laptop edge. Habit, order, proof. I locked the door behind me. The streets were still damp, reflections pooling in the asphalt. My reflection stared back from a passing cab window. Calm, composed, someone I finally recognized. When I arrived at Marcello's, I stopped outside the glass doors. Inside, I could already see the glow of candles, my mother's silhouette, the familiar angle of Becca's phone as she adjusted the lens. I breathed once, steady. They thought tonight was their stage. They had no idea the script had already been rewritten, signed, sealed, time-stamped. This time I wasn't walking into their performance. I was walking into proof. The hostess smiled when she saw me. "Coal party?" she asked. Her tone was professional, but I caught the flicker when she scanned the list and didn't see my name. I nodded. Yes, they're expecting me. Inside, the air smelled like truffle oil and expensive indifference. My family sat in the corner booth under soft pendant lighting. My mother waved like this was a reunion, not an ambush. Becca lifted her phone slightly, framing the shot. "Jordan, sweetheart," my mother said, her voice dipped in rehearsed warmth. "We have something important to discuss." A server appeared, placing a crisp white envelope beside my water glass. My father cleared his throat. "It's time we all move forward," he said. My mother's smile widened. "This is from all of us." Becca's camera caught everything, the envelope sliding, my face unreadable. I opened it slowly. The paper was heavy, embossed, legal. Notice of eviction, Jordan Cole, 30 days to vacate the premises. It was signed by all 3 of them. Neat signatures, practiced loops, my graduation gift. The table watched, waiting for tears, maybe anger, but I'd already lived the real moment. I folded the paper once, twice, then placed it beside my fork. "Thank you," I said. My tone was even, deliberate. Becca blinked. "You're thanking us?" I met her eyes, steady. The air tightened. My father shifted. My mother's hand hovered over her wine glass. Becca lowered her phone, unsure what she was filming anymore. "Jordan," my mother said softly, "you don't have to make this harder." But I was already reaching into my bag. I pulled out a folder. Navy blue, the same color Marcus wore the day he handed me the contract. I placed it on the table and opened it toward them. Inside was the acquisition announcement. Apex Freight Solutions letterhead gleaming under candlelight. Beneath it, my name. Jordan Cole, Vice President of Product Innovation, Shift Path Integration Lead. For a moment, no one spoke. The restaurant's piano played softly in the background. Unaware it was scoring something irreversible. Becca leaned forward, reading faster. "This is yours?" "Yes." My father frowned. "The kind he reserved for bad investments. You sold it." "I built it," I said quietly. "Then I sold it." My mother tried to recover. "We didn't know." "I know," I said. It was the first time I'd ever seen my mother truly speechless. Becca's phone was still in her hand, but the red light was off now. My father reached for his scotch, but his grip trembled just enough for the glass to clink against the marble. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. I simply stood. "You can keep the letter," I said, sliding their eviction notice back across the table. "I already have my own." The irony landed quietly, perfectly. Behind me, I heard Becca whisper something. Maybe a plea, maybe a curse, but I didn't turn back. As I reached the doorway, the restaurant's soft piano swelled. I paused, one hand on the frame, the city lights reflecting in the glass ahead. In that reflection, I saw them still sitting there, surrounded by the world they'd built, bright, polished, empty. The next morning, graduation day arrived cold and clear. The campus quad was packed, families clustered near the stage, balloons, cameras, laughter echoing off brick buildings. I sat in the third row, cap perfectly straight, hands folded in my lap. Dr. Nguyen walked across the stage to present the Innovator Award. This year's recipient, she said, voice steady through the microphone, has demonstrated not only technical brilliance but vision. Someone who saw a problem no one else was solving and built the solution from the ground up. My heart beat once, twice. Jordan Cole. Applause erupted. I stood, legs steady, and walked toward the stage. As I climbed the steps, I saw them, my family, sitting near the back, my mother's face frozen mid-smile, my father's jaw tight, Becca's phone down, for once, not recording. Marcus Green was standing in the front row, clapping, nodding once. Dr. Nguyen handed me the plaque. "You've earned this," she whispered. I took it, heavy, real. I turned to face the crowd. For 18 years I'd been a name at the edge of the frame. Now, I was the name they couldn't ignore. That night, I returned to my apartment. The city stretched below, lights flickering like distant data points. I set the plaque on the counter next to my degree, next to the eviction notice, next to the Apex contract. 3 documents, 3 versions of my name. 1 they tried to erase, 2 they couldn't. I made coffee, pouring it slow and steady. The cup clicked softly against the table. That sound had become my rhythm. Measured, controlled, alive. My phone buzzed once. A text from Becca. "We didn't mean it like that. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. The dots blinked, disappeared, blinked again. Then I turned the phone face down. Some messages aren't meant to be answered. They're meant to echo into silence. The light shifted, warmer now. Outside, the city woke, delivery trucks, joggers, the rhythm of another ordinary day. I opened the window, letting the air in. Somewhere below, a train screeched, metal against metal, raw and honest. In the reflection on the glass, I saw someone who no longer needed to explain why she was standing there. I picked up their eviction notice one last time, folded it neatly, and slid it behind the frame of my degree. Not hidden, just placed in order. Evidence of what was, proof of what changed. The air steadied. My shoulders did too. Silence, at last, didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Revenge didn't sound like victory. It sounded like calm breath in a quiet room. The kind of silence you choose, not the kind forced on you. Families break loudly. Peace rebuilds quietly. They wrote me out of their story, but I became the footnote they'll never erase. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. They end with clarity. If you've ever been the quiet one in the room, the one everyone underestimated, this one's for you. Watch till the end, because sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's a strategy, and the calm that follows